making
public art.
With us, Louise and Laura from Francis Knight Public Art Consultancy.
Conversations with a range of arts practitioners, community activists, planning directors and design teams about how we can make places better by working with artists.
Our role as public art consultants is all about the delicate balance of client expectations to encourage new ways of seeing, developing relationships, connecting people and enabling the creative process. Today we meet Maria Amidu. Maria Amidu is a UK-based visual artist and writer, developing national and international site-specific and public realm projects. Her artistic concerns are influenced by the scope and significance of common experiences.
She is interested in the relationships between people and place, what is hidden, obscured or unspoken in various social situations, using these elements as a means to try and substantiate numerous lived experiences.
The form her work takes is often artist books, print and photography, and more recently film. She also utilises her craft practice and makes works with clay, wax and cast glass. She has developed projects with various organisations including Nuit Blanche Toronto, People United and Turner Contemporary. And with us, Francis Knight Public Art Consultancy.
She was recently commissioned by Metal Southend to create a new permanent work for the Thames Estuary Trail as part of Estuary Festival 2021. She is a Winston Churchill Fellow and is currently a PhD candidate at the Royal College of Art, funded by the London Arts and Humanities Partnership. Welcome, Maria Amidu.
I can't believe that it seems we met last spring, summer,
yeah.
Maria, when we first started working on Wivelsfield Railway Station Bridge, the commission for Mid Sussex District Council, wasn't it, where we were looking at 4 artworks on the abutment walls, working not only with the local community but with Lionel, who's a street artist and a scenic artist, and we did an awful lot of that virtually. We'll come on to that maybe, but it'd be really interesting if you could just talk, because we know you started out as a visual artist, but maybe just for the listener, just talk about how you got into making and commissioning or actually creating artwork for the public realm.
Yes, I know. It's quite an interesting transition, because I did my MA actually at the Royal College of Art as well, and I did glass and ceramics. And when I left, I didn't go straight into making. I got into arts administration, and then I got a Crafts Council setting up grant when they used to give out grants. And I organised a little studio. So I put a little studio together where I had a kiln and a sandblaster, and I was making a lot of very simple fused and slumped glass works. And then so I kind of had this craving to get back to my practice, and then I was involved in my practice. And then after maybe about a year and a half, 2 years, I just felt really isolated. And I think that was kind of the kind of contrast of actually, being in an institution and being surrounded by other people who are, developing their creative practices and having lots of stimulus, and then being in a studio. And even though I was in a space studio, so there were other artists around, it really was, it's just a very different experience. And I just kind of thought, I don't know whether this is for me. I don't know whether I want to be in this, come to my studio every day, make things that potentially sell and maybe don't sell, because oftentimes you send stuff to galleries on sale or return. And then I started thinking, actually, I'm so interested in people, and I'm so interested in the dynamics of kind of collective situations. I think I should really think about working in a different way. And I think then the transition, this kind of crossover or kind of blurring of boundaries of practices wasn't like that when I first graduated. I'm sure, it was very, very, it was fixed. It was really fixed. You were an applied artist and you did this. You were a fine artist. So it took me a long time to kind of build up the confidence to think, actually, I can practice in a different way. And then the way it started was I started applying for kind of public socially engaged projects. And initially, of course, I wasn't getting anywhere because I didn't have any evidence of being able to work in that way. And then somebody at the Crafts Council, remember having a conversation with somebody, I can't remember who it was now. And she said, actually, maybe what you should do is you should kind of create your own project, photograph it, and then you'll have something to apply with, which was a really good idea. And I can't even remember what I did now, what I created. I have no recollection. I can't remember what it was.
But creating your own
Did it get you a job, though? Did it get you a job?
Yes, it did. So I got, which is really good. So I got, so the first project I did was with the Horniman Museum.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was, and there were 6 artists that were invited, and we were all invited to respond to the African Worlds Gallery that was about to be newly installed. And that was the first time that I'd kind of worked with a collection in a formal way, which I absolutely loved, you know, just being able to go to the stores and look through all this material. And then it was also the first time I was asked to work with school children and adults. And I'd never done it before. I mean, I'd done it on the odd little thing, you know, through college or whatever, but I hadn't really been involved in kind of mapping out a project. And 1, I loved it. And 2, I kind of discovered that I had quite a natural aptitude for working in a kind of formal or informal teaching environment. And with people, and then it kind of took off from there, really. So then after the Horniman, what was the next project I did? I think, was that Bristol? No, it wasn't Bristol. It was, I think it was with Innova when I worked on a project called DARE, which was a residency in a school in East London, and it was looking at digital learning, creative digital learning. And then I did a project at Bristol Royal Children's Hospital, which was also really interesting because I just started working there when they'd moved into the new building. So I did this piece which was about the relationship that people had to the old building and what they missed whilst they were in the new building. That was interesting. And then I can't quite recall what happened after that, but that's how it started. And I think I really... I just had this real kind of, I was really liberated by this way of working because it meant that I wasn't kind of fixed. I didn't have to fix my practice. So I stopped kind of thinking, I have to make a glass object. I just thought, okay, let me think about the collection and what the collection's saying. And that's kind of how I moved into writing and print, really. And then in terms of actually doing work that was kind of for the public realm. So all of those projects, there was an outcome, a making outcome, which I usually split into 2 parts, not intentionally, but I think there was an element that I made with the people that were taking part. And then there was an element that I made myself. And I think one of the reasons for doing that was something to do with, I really wanted to honour what the group of people was saying and what they wanted to achieve. And it might not always correlate with what I was thinking about and what I wanted to do. So it was really good to kind of create these 2 components. And then the first project that I actually did, which I would kind of say more formally was for the public realm, was the Nuit Blanche commission that I did in 2018, which was really exciting because I hadn't ever done anything of that scale before. And there was in fact, the way of working was very similar to working with you both, actually, where I worked with the curator and the producer and the production manager at the very beginning. And we talked a lot about potential spaces and what the work could look like and what the theme could potentially be and who I would be in conversation with. And I know with us, the site was already fixed, but there was this really nice kind of fluidity around, okay, so how should we go about this? You know, and I found that really exciting because I really like this, interplay between kind of what I want to do and the brief, you know, like that kind of, okay, so how does this work? So, okay, this is what's required, but it's kind of not as well because otherwise they would have made that thing and not asked me. So they want me to bring something to it, but there's kind of quite a shape to it already. And
there's some room for interpretation.
Yeah. And I find that really fascinating, actually, that kind of, because at first you think, well, I don't know, maybe other artists don't think this, but I think, what am I going to do? I can't do this. I don't know what to do. It's impossible. You know, that's my first reaction. Because I'm kind of thinking, what do they want? What do they want? Oh my God, I don't think I can give them what they want. And then after I kind of relax, I think, okay, let's just, you know, do some research, speak to people, find out, you know, and then I get really excited. And I get particularly excited when I'm either talking to the group of people that I'm working with and or being at the site, and just allowing all of that to kind of, allow that to kind of, kind of seep into your thinking. I find that really interesting.
So I guess with us then, we started our project in quite strange times, didn't we? Really?
So we did.
And you talk about how, you wanted to, meet people and go to the site and get the feel for it. And I guess we kind of started it in lockdown, didn't we, really? I mean, it was a crazy time, and we had a really good forward-thinking client, I think, who was happy to sort of think of a different way of approaching it in a way, really. Yeah. So I remember appointing you via Zoom.
That was my first ever Zoom interview.
Yes, it was very to think it was our first as well.
It was such a good interview, wasn't it? It felt so relaxed.
It was. It's because you made it relaxed. It was so enjoyable. Because at first I was thinking, oh my God, I don't know how to do this, and then you guys were just so relaxed. I was like, oh yeah, it's just chatting to some people.
Well, that's kind of how it has to be, hasn't it? Really, because I mean, I think as you talk about, open briefs or open ways of working, I think we wanted to make sure that we could do this the best way possible, because we couldn't go out and meet everybody, could we? We just couldn't do it at that time. So I kind of want to talk to you a bit about how you felt about doing that virtually, because could have been quite a challenge, really.
Yeah.
And that absence of not being able to meet people, I'd imagine for you, because that's what you like to do, must have been quite difficult. Maria?
Yeah, it was at first I thought, oh, blimey, I don't know, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Yeah. And then I thought, I don't know how the idea came about actually, but I think because in my application to my submission, my proposal, I talked a lot about, I think I started thinking about the fact that we were trapped inside, and actually to think about this idea of a virtual tour. And when I kind of had that idea, I got really excited then, and I thought, yeah, this is really interesting, because it means everybody can still do something. We can all still do something. Because I was thinking, I don't want it just to be a conversation. I want to create a situation where we're all kind of doing something. So myself and the residents and the school children, we're doing something, even though we're not in the same space. So I think so I put that in my proposal. And then when you appointed me, I was thinking, oh, this will be great, because maybe I can actually be like a virtual teacher, and I come up on screen and I do things so I'm doing the same thing that I'm asking them to do. And then that was challenging because the school couldn't do that because of, security and safety, which I completely understand. And then I thought, well, actually, I'll just get them to do a virtual tour and send that to me. And then I think once I relaxed into that, I thought, okay, this is just that these are the parameters, and that's the reality of the situation. But the downside for me was not actually meeting the children. I was so looking forward to being able to, actually see them and for them to show me stuff on screen. Like initially I had this idea that we'd be working together, and then, we'd be kind of, getting on with it. And then every now and again, somebody go, look, I was really, that didn't happen. But that, it was frustrating, but at the same time, I think, we just had to put everything into perspective, didn't we? And just think, look, this is the reality of the situation, and we have to adapt somehow. And I think what was really nice about the plus side of that experience was I did get these little videos of these random children that I didn't even know, which I just thought were fantastic, and really, really quite touching as well, that they've made this commitment and gone out with their families to do something, and that kind of love of their own neighbourhood really came across. And so even though it was, for me, it was, that it was a very different initial way of doing things. I think I learned a lot from it as well. I think this idea of what you can do, and even though you think something's missing, in a way you can still, because I actually did these videos, didn't I, with these terribly filmed videos. God, they're so badly filmed. But I really liked that, actually. I quite liked the fact that I was in my own environment and I was kind of introducing them to my studio. And the plus side for me was really how it was a kind of it became a bit of a teaching method, because I was talking about a tour, going on a tour. What does a tour involve? And because I did a tour of my studio, I could illustrate to them what I meant. And actually, I quite liked that. And I don't think that would have manifested in the same way, interestingly. So there was.
I was going to say, I think we had to work with what we had, didn't we? And if you think about it, psychologically, we were all going through similar situations. We were all in lockdown. We could only go out for an hour's walk. I know we were kind of slowly coming out of it as the artwork started to happen on site, but, you know, people were perhaps appreciating their neighbourhoods that bit more. And were spending their time wisely, because we weren't able to travel widely, and we were all walking, weren't we? We were all kind of sort of walking the neighbourhood the way we hadn't done previously. And so it kind of, if you think about it, it came at a really good time for that, people to spend dwell time almost, you know, we were just...
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it, actually, dwell time.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? But also we had such a delightful residents association, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. They're a joy. They really were. So thoughtful, but understated, you know, just really, really receptive as well, you know. And I ended up having these, because with them, I sent them a letter, didn't I? So I did the, which I really enjoyed doing, because I typed it on my typewriter. And I like the idea of actually them receiving something in the post, because that was another idea I had, didn't I, about this idea of post, you know, us sending things back and forth. But that, obviously, that was... well, not that it could. I think it was just might have created an unnecessary layer. So it was quite nice to be able to do it in some ways. So with the children, I sent the videos, and with the residents group, I sent the letter, and I put a little picture of myself, because I thought they're not going to meet me, are they? So
well, it was an invitation to join you, and I think, although you didn't carry on with the exchange via mail, the fact that you sent an invitation and they received that in the post, quite a traditional form of communication, they responded really well to it.
Yeah, they did. And I really love post as well, which is something I'm looking at in my research, actually. Well, looking at correspondence. So any opportunity to write something and put it in an envelope, I'm very happy. So, and then
more and more of that's happening as well, isn't it? I think we were talking about that this morning, that, you know, print and things like that may mean more to people now, because, you know, we have been doing everything so virtually all the time, haven't we? To get something physical in the post is quite exciting.
It is really exciting, isn't it? It really is exciting. And then then as a result of that, then we did a Zoom, didn't we? You guys set up a Zoom, and then I did correspond with them via email, which was really nice. So then, which I loved, because that was the moment in which I kind of thought, oh, this is interesting, because that's when they started giving me a bit of a history and telling me that it wasn't Wivelsfield, it was World's End. And I was thinking, this is fascinating, you know. And I really like the pace of that, actually. So I like the fact that, you know, the residents really knew their area, obviously, and I didn't know anything. And then I just get these little kind of scenes, or, you know, kind of bits of history, and they did a couple of videos as well, and they were so mundane, but and I mean that in the nicest possible way, you know. So there was a little scene outside the barbers. Oh, okay, great. It's the barbers in Wivelsfield, you know, people were queuing up because finally the barbers had opened again, and, you know, and then then they were you know, showing the pub, and then the particular road, and then the reservoir, and it was just, I loved the real kind of the everydayness of it, you know. And this kind of a place that they live with, they see all the time, that I have no relationship to, or had no relationship to, which is also really interesting in itself, because in the olden days, I just used to whiz past Wivelsfield on the train.
That's right.
Yeah. And then if it was I was coming home late and it was the slow train, it stopped at Wivelsfield. I was like, oh, for God's sake, why is it stopping at Wivelsfield? I've got time for this. I want to get home. And so when I saw the brief and everything, I was thinking, oh, Wivelsfield, that's really interesting. And then when you offered me the commission, I was saying to friends, I said, yeah, guess what? I'm going to do the project at Wivelsfield. And it was just fantastic. And so now, and I've only been on the train a couple of times since then, but I look out for Wivelsfield now. Oh, that's and nice. I really
put
love
it on
that.
the map.
Yeah, I really love it. And every time I pass it, I've only passed it a couple of times, and I always think, oh my God, my thing's down there, you know. So I have this,
Yeah.
you know, indelible connection to it now, which I've find even, you know, when the artwork fades in, I don't know, 10 years or whatever, it's just, you know, that's indelible now. You know, I will always have this relationship with Wivelsfield, which I really love, you know. And I have actually been back a couple of times for a walk. So I've walked through I went with friends and we walked all through the woods and to the reservoir and around. I thought, God, who'd have thought before lockdown that I'd be wandering around Wivelsfield?
I know, and they were very generous, but I just want to kind of pick up on the fact that you were so generous too as well, Maria, you know, with your time and your exchange with the community. And there were a few times where we were having conversations over changes because we were using text within the artwork, and that, you know, that can always, when you go to approval process, can be challenging. But I do recall the conversation with you about, and how gracious you were at the time about saying that it was all part of feedback and part of the collaboration. And, you know, that I just kind of want to recognise that, really, that this is an ongoing relationship, isn't it? Choosing something for the public realm. Who chooses it? You know, why should it be chosen? But it was so rooted in the community and that exchange that you'd had with them that, it was a true collaboration with them, wasn't it? The invitation came from you, and some of that was driven by you in terms of the direction that we went. And then there was the further collaboration with Lionel, who then is looking at, as a street artist and a scenic artist, looking at scale and how things fit within the public realm. So I just kind of wanted to comment on that, really. It wasn't really a question. It was just more a sort of, you know, observation, I suppose.
Oh, no, it's really, I mean, I would say the same about you both as well, because I think that it's about it's the nature of the invitation from you that sets the tone as well, you know. So I mean, you know, the brief was really clear, you know, the parameters are really clear, and you both have such a, you know, you're so open and friendly and easygoing, even though, you know, that easygoingness could be mistaken in a different context, could be mistaken for just kind of not paying attention. But it's not that. I think you have this really great capacity to kind of hold the space, so to speak, in a really brilliant way, which meant I could just relax, you know. I didn't have to think, oh God, what about this? Oh God, what about that? You know, you both, you both really create the space to just kind of, for me to just think, okay, right, let me just see what can happen here, you know.
I think that's really important, because we're sort of in the middle, the conduit, aren't we, between the client, whoever that is, and the artist. And there's a lot of stuff going on over here with the client that we kind of, keep going on about, but we kind of keep it away from the artist, unless unless there is something and we do need to talk about that. But, you know, the idea is that the artist comes onto a project and can then start to create the work, or, you know, have that space to do that. That's really important. And I know that you mentioned this idea of briefs, and having an open brief is really important to you. You know, you need to have that space as well, don't you, Maria, to be able to approach the project in the way that you would approach it. It's because, you know, for instance, you know, we commissioned you because of the way you worked and the work that you did. It wasn't a matter of, here's the project brief. We use Maria, but no, she's going to do it like this, and we're going to tell her to do that. And she's, you know, it was very much about keeping that process open. And I think it worked with Wivelsfield. It almost worked more because of the situation that we were in, as you mentioned. Definitely, yeah.
And I mean, it's what you're describing is that's real expertise, you know. You're saying it in this, you know, Laura, you're saying, oh, you know, but it's actually, that is a massive skill, to be able to be the conduit and to keep everyone happy, and also have the confidence to maybe challenge, or kind of, you know, question, or push a bit further, or kind of rein in a bit. You know, that's a really delicate you know, kind of set of dynamics. And, you know, and some artists can be a bloody night. Sorry, I'm not sure. It can be a nightmare. You know, they can be.
So can art consultants.
So I think it's really, you know, to me, it was just like, you know, it's like a real kind of chemistry, and with Lionel as well, because obviously I didn't know Lionel before, and and working with, because he's also really easygoing as well, even though he has a rigor as well. So there's just this really nice balance between us all, wasn't there? Between this, kind of easygoingness and this, kind of paying attention. And I really, really like that. I found that really, really interesting. And then of course the residents, and then Jo, the teacher, who was the main person I spoke to at Wivelsfield, and she was really great as well, even though she was obviously, as all teachers were and still are, under a huge amount of pressure. I think she was also really open, to the process, and really helped me just find a way to be able to kind of connect with the children. So she became the conduit between me and the children. And the other important thing I wanted to say in relation to that as well is that about the brief is how, and public, work in the public realm is, I think I've said this to you before, but I'm always amazed at how, there's a local place, a local situation, and somebody, kind of parachutes in from somewhere else and then puts something there that the people that live there who are going to see it every day don't even like. I mean, I don't understand that. I know. It's bizarre. It's like somebody, I think we said this before once, it's like somebody coming into your living room and just dumping something in there. You think, well, who put that there? I didn't like that. Get it out.
And how does that happen? How does it happen?
I know, and I find that bizarre. I find that really such a strange thing, and I think there's something about hierarchy there, isn't there, in the art world? This idea, the artist, whoever it is kind of verified, and they're really important, and the rest is they're just these people down here, and I don't see it like that at all. I feel it's an equal situation in terms of how there is no hierarchy in my view. I mean, obviously people have different roles and we have to take responsibility for the role that we have, but we're all equally valid in that situation. And that's how I start things, so I think, well, okay, so this child has done this and this child has done this, and then one of the residents has said this, and I think, okay, so I need to give these equal weight because they all they all matter. And I think, and that's one of the reasons why I did the second panel, our friendly community. It would have been easy for me to kind of just think, oh, well, this child has done that really great, I'll just use that one. And I just thought, no, I can't do that, because all of these children that have sent me something have made a commitment to do something, and they've put their heart and soul into it, and they've taken time, and they've sent stuff through to me. And therefore, everybody needs to be included. Everybody needs to, even if they don't even remember the little letter E or the Y that they made in that drawing, it doesn't matter. I remember, I know that was from a different child to that child, And I think even though that doesn't, that might not be evident to people just passing by and looking, I think there's an energy of that is imbued in the work, and I think that people's responses to it are because of that, I think, as well as whatever the composition is, or whatever.
And also the children that walk past that contributed to that will know if that Y is their Y or the E is their E, and that's for a primary school child walking past school every day, knowing that, it's incredibly powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really important. It gives it, because it really says they're important, and it also it gives weight to their experience, doesn't it? Because they're passing it all the time. I just think, God, if I was 7 and you made something, you're passing it on your way to school. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, we were, and of course we did a film as part of putting the project together, and we've got the children that participated in the film as well, and they do look,
I love that
proud as punch.
Oh, it's so lovely,
shuffling along in front of the film.
I love that bit. That's the best bit at the end, because they really kind of they just take it all so seriously, don't they, in the nicest possible way, like, come on, do it properly.
Shuffle along.
It's just lovely, and for me that bit was so magical, because of course I hadn't seen them before. So I love that. That's my favourite bit.
It's all just very poignant, isn't it?
Really. And that, actually, as you're saying that, it's really making me think how much more poignant the work is, because it happened last year. So it's like a marker for the crazy 2020.
Yeah, it is
2020. Yeah. So I mean, looking forward, if you were able to do whatever public realm project you wanted, what would you do if you had the opportunity?
Oh,
if you were kind of given the budget, given the resources.
Oh my God, I'm so there's a project, I'm not going to go into it in massive detail because I suppose I'm a bit not protective from you, but just the broader audience. But it's this project that I submitted a proposal to Art Angel Open whenever it was, the last time, I don't know when it was, 5 or 6 years ago or something, probably longer actually, because it's before I moved to Hove, so maybe 7 years ago. And it's to do a piece of work. So I grew up for a period of time in Bexhill, and I want to do a piece of work about memory and kind of traversing the landscape. And it's a piece that involves, it'd be huge actually. I don't know whether one day someone's going to give me the budget to do this project, but it involves using a train and making the train the site of the work. And it's kind of, so I remember when I wrote the proposal and I was thinking, oh my God, this would just be so amazing if I could do this. And it involves kind of that public realm kind of component where I'd be talking to people about how they found themselves in that place and why they're still there and how I found myself there as well. And I just think, oh God, if I could make this happen, it would just be such an incredible experience. And it's a lot about sound in relation to memory and conversation in relation to memory. So that would be the project that I would love to do. And I have, it's quite a few years ago now, I had a brief chat with with Stuart Drew, the director of Delaware Pavilion, because it would be great to do it in partnership with them. And for me, the Delaware is such an interesting building because when I was there as a kid, a long time ago, it was just it had this, obviously the architecture remains, but it was very neglected, let's say. And, the art world wasn't what it is now. And I used to go and watch pantomimes there, and it was just, I remember writing this line about it. I don't know what I was writing about now, but I called it something like a cacophony of chintz overload. So the floor was like this sticky, horrible carpet, and the wallpaper, can you imagine the Delaware looking like that? So it was, it's all kind of, this modernist building that it's been returned to now. But when I was a kid, it was like going into some kind of crazy ballroom,
Yes.
So this kind of brings me on to Agatha Christie then.
Such a geek.
So you're talking about chintz and trains. Yeah, what's this about, Maria?
God, that's so. I do you know what? I hadn't quite made that connection before now. That's so interesting.
And in fact, trains are a bit of a recurring theme,
They
aren't they?
Isn't that interesting? Do you know what? I had never made that connection until this very moment. But yeah, I don't know why, but since I was a kid, I have loved reading Agatha Christie. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff to do with my, childhood experiences that are related somehow. But because a lot of my work, like people keep pointing out to me, is to do with kind of absence and presence and mystery and kind of leaving question marks and
Who done it? Christie.
Exactly. And actually it's making me think of where, my P's, where are we? Question mark.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So there's always this kind of, room for lots of different interpretation. And it's watching Agatha Christie is my go-to, like on a Sunday afternoon, I think, I just fancy, something that's not going to, tax my brain. And it'll be that. And I'm so disappointed lately because I think I've watched every single one and I kind of just every now and again I go to ITV Hub and think, oh yeah, I've seen that one. Oh yeah, I've seen that one. Oh yeah, I've seen that one. It's so disappointing, but sometimes I do watch them again because I love it so much. And actually I find myself sometimes I'm watching them and if I haven't watched it before and I think, oh yeah, I think I remember this one. I remember reading this one, and it's like it's all there in the recesses of my brain. But it's my real kind of, it's my guilty escapist secret.
Lovely. Well, we need those, definitely.
Yeah, I can see it actually, some of your work, and because we've looked at some of your previous work as we were sort of preparing for our podcast today, and the commission for Toronto, the Nuit Blanche one, that is kind of the memories, lost memories, the secrets, the stories. It's called We All Have Stories, isn't it? So it's sort of uncovering, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
uncovering things all
yeah.
the time.
I think you
can
definitely
really
need to
see
get
that.
this. You need to get this this project up and going.
Oh, I
really.
know. We
think
should
it's,
find it. We need to find a way.
We need to find some funding.
Yeah,
That's
it'll
our
be
next.
yeah, that would be brilliant. But I like this word that you just said, Louise, which was uncovering. You said, didn't you, just now?
Yeah,
That's a really good
yeah.
word. I like that word. I'm going to think about that, because the piece that I made, so the whole show was called We All Have Dream Time, We All Have Stories, and then my piece was called Edge, Threshold, Brink, and it's very much about that kind of, you know, that moment of transition. So I framed it around this idea of a transitional space, because the site I was given was a transitional space. So I was thinking, oh, what do they do, those spaces? And you're caught in this in between, aren't you? And it's yeah, I'm really interested in that. And actually my research is looking at the in between, the liminal as well, and what happens in that space. So it's kind of, what's interesting for me is that it doesn't matter what project I'm doing. I'm thinking about our commission, it just finds its way in there, you know?
Yeah.
It's like
I love that,
it's
though.
so interesting, isn't it? It doesn't matter how much I think, oh yes, I'm doing it about this, and I'm following the brief, and I'm gonna, I'm doing it this way, and then then you kind of reflect back and you think, oh yeah, there it is. There's the mystery and the question and the
But it's so important that you have the space to do that as well, isn't it? I think that's what's crucial about commissioning, for when you're being commissioned for public realm or social engaged practice or whatever it is, that there's space for you to develop your practice however it's going.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's something really nice about, I think it would be different if, I haven't really done this before, so who knows, but I don't think the energy and the kind of what's created is the same if you're not in communication with the people in the space as well. So, some public realm commissions, it's, please make this thing for the space, and there isn't an engagement element, is there? I can't quite imagine that. I think I'd create one even if there wasn't one, I'd just think, oh, let's find, there's got to find some kind of interaction.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, which is interesting. And actually that's what happened with Toronto, actually, because the curator, Karen Alexander, she wanted me to do a project with a group of people, but I didn't want to. I knew I was only going to be there for a couple of days, less than a week, and I thought that feels too superficial for me. And so what I did in the end is I decided to talk to a series of historians. And so I did, I found my, little tribe of people to communicate with. And so for me, I think that's really, I don't think a successful public realm project I don't think a project in the public realm can be successful unless there is this kind of, correspondence with what we know, with the people in that place, I think it's crucial, actually. And maybe that's a good measure for what a successful, if you look at some projects and you think, oh, that's not right, is it? Maybe it's because there was that disconnect, between the people and the artist. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, thank you very much for uncovering lots of things for us. It's been lovely.
It's been lovely to chat to you, Maria.
It's been fantastic. So nice to see you both again as well.
And you. It's lovely to see
thank you, Maria. Thank you so much.
Engaged, creative, curious, courageous and valued, Frances Knight is an award-winning independent public art consultancy based in South East England, with over 16 years' experience offering expert advice and management in commissioning high-quality art for the public realm. As co-founders and directors of the business, Louise Francis and Laura Knight commission professional artists from across the UK to create ambitious public realm artworks in a variety of locations. The consultancy partners closely with housing developers, design teams, social housing associations and local authorities, together with a wide range of community groups, to create brave, ambitious, thought-provoking art for public spaces.
Over this series of podcasts, we will be looking at different ways that developers can engage with artists as part of a design team, and how, if it's done right, these working relationships can lead to meaningful, lasting and joyous contributions to our townscapes and landscapes.
Next week, writer Mark Hewitt talks to us about our work as public art consultants, on the difficulty of keeping public art as a priority within a large-scale project, being a constant and visible, the importance of bringing artists in at the beginning of a development, understanding how artists work, and the key themes that have emerged from the Talking Public Art podcasts.
plus work-life balance, having fun, the wow factor, and whether or not our hometown of Maidstone is still beige. If you enjoyed this episode, we would really appreciate it if you could rate, review, and subscribe to our podcasts. It helps us spread the word on demystifying public art.